Artyom Kozlov, a 48-year-old builder, carefully inspected the perimeter of a new construction site on the outskirts of Perm on the morning of May 5, 2019. The day was overcast. Heavy gray clouds hung low over the city, and a light, drizzling rain fell. Artyom checked the safety of the perimeter, making sure the area was ready for the next phase of construction. It was then that he noticed something unusual. At first, it seemed to him to be just an old doghouse, abandoned by someone. Construction debris was a common sight on such sites. But when Artyom got closer, he saw that the doghouse was unusual. It was made of darkened wood. Inside, he made out folded fabric. Artyom realized this was not just trash. What he found had been lying there for 28 years. The fabric was eaten away by time, but the outlines of a school uniform were recognizable. Most disturbing, there was a broken mirror lying nearby. He also saw a pendant with the initials AV and a yellowed note. On it, in faded ink, was written, "She still hears." This discovery would forever change a 28-year-old secret, a secret that had tormented the city. Artyom had no idea that this ordinary morning would become the most unsettling day of his life. What was about to be discovered had remained hidden for 28 years. It had been waiting for this moment. In a few minutes, the mystery of nearly 3 decades would finally be revealed. Perm would never be the same after this discovery. 1991 was a time of great change for Russia. The Soviet Union was collapsing, and the economy was in chaos. A sense of uncertainty hung in the air. In the city of Perm, an industrial center in the Urals, life went on, but each day brought new hardships. In this period, many old orders collapsed, and new ones had not yet formed. A 17-year-old student named Anna Vasilyeva lived in Perm. She was a diligent student, and her family was proud of her. Every day, Anna went to school, returning home along the same route. No one could have imagined that one day this path would be cut short. On the morning of October 22, 1991, Anna went to school as usual. She put on her school uniform, a blue skirt and a white blouse. Her fair hair was braided into a plait. Her parents, Igor and Svetlana, kissed her goodbye and told her to be careful, as the roads were slippery due to the onset of autumn rains. After classes, Anna left school. It was around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Autumn had already taken hold. The days were getting shorter, and a cold wind was piercing to the bone. There were no witnesses who saw her after that. She simply disappeared, as if dissolving into thin air. When Anna did not return home at the usual time, her parents began to worry. They waited an hour, then another. The phone was silent. The neighbors knew nothing, nor did her friends from school. Anna's parents immediately turned to the police and reported her disappearance. The search began. The police checked the usual places: hospitals, train stations, but there were no traces. The forests around Perm were vast and dense, and they could hide anything or anyone. The search continued for days, then weeks. The cold weather was coming. Snow would fall soon, and hope was fading. Anna Vasilyeva's case was one of many in that chaotic period. The collapse of the Soviet Union led to an increase in crime and in the number of unexplained disappearances. The authorities were overwhelmed, and many cases were simply shelved. Over time, Anna's case became one of them. It was placed in the archive. What was lost? A young life, dreams, the hopes of a family. Who was involved? No one knew. What questions remained unanswered? Where was she? What happened to her? Why? These questions tormented her parents every day. They lived in constant uncertainty. The silence was deafening. Years, decades passed, and silence shrouded the case of Anna Vasilyeva. For her family, every day was torture. Igor and Svetlana never came to terms with the loss of their daughter. They tried to move on, but part of their souls remained forever in that autumn day of 1991. They often visited the local police station and asked questions, but there were no answers. The mystery haunted them, but not only them. In the city of Perm, among the older residents, whispers circulated. Rumors spread like wildfire about a forest creature, about something that lived in the dark thickets. Some spoke of abductions, of strange disappearances that were never investigated. These stories were passed from mouth to mouth, each adding its own eerie touch. In reality, Anna did not disappear without a trace. She was kidnapped by a group of people who worked for a top-secret facility, an experimental center located deep in the forests of the Urals. This center was part of a secret program that had been created back in Soviet times. Its goal was to study the human mind and attempt to create a new generation of loyal citizens, possibly even to control their thoughts. The main antagonist was Professor Dmitry Kozlov, an outstanding scientist, but his methods were inhumane. He believed in his mission, believed that he was saving the country, even if it meant sacrificing individual lives. His motives were deeply rooted in the ideology of the Soviet era, an ideology that did not value individuality. Dmitry Kozlov was obsessed with control. He wanted to control people's thoughts. He was looking for a way to create absolute loyalty, to create mindless puppets. Anna was not chosen by chance. She was smart and young, the perfect subject for his experiments. After the abduction, Anna was taken to this secret facility, where she was kept in complete isolation. She was not allowed to communicate with the outside world. She was given special drugs that suppressed her will. Her mind was subjected to constant manipulation. Sounds, images, all aimed at changing her consciousness. Traces of secrecy were everywhere. Documents were falsified, and archives were purged. Anyone who asked too many questions disappeared or was transferred to another location. The center operated undercover, disguised as an ordinary research base. Local residents had heard of it, of course, but no one dared to speak aloud. Over time, Anna got used to her new reality. She forgot her past life. Her personality was erased. She became one of Professor Kozlov's many subjects, but something inside her resisted. It was a small spark, a spark of her former self. She was waiting for her moment. Professor Kozlov was very careful. He knew that his actions were illegal even by Soviet standards. He was ready to do anything to keep his secret. He used his connections and his influence to quell any suspicions. His power extended far, encompassing law enforcement agencies and even some political circles. No one dared to contradict him. He was like a ghost. His presence was felt, but he was impossible to catch. But a secret could not be kept forever, even in the darkest corners. Professor Kozlov was getting older, his health was deteriorating, and some of his employees began to have doubts about the ethics of his work. One of them, Ivan Petrov, was a former employee. He knew the truth. Ivan Petrov worked at the center. He was a young engineer. He saw what was happening, saw how Anna and others were deprived of their freedom. He witnessed everything. His conscience tormented him. He could not remain silent, but fear for his life and for the lives of his loved ones, held him back. He knew that Professor Kozlov was ruthless. Anyone who tried to reveal the truth would be destroyed. Ivan waited for the right moment. He collected information, copied documents, and secretly recorded conversations. He did everything to make his evidence irrefutable, but that moment never came. Ivan grew old and his health deteriorated. He lived with this burden, with this heavy load. He knew that he had to tell the truth before he died, that he had to let the families know what happened to their loved ones. The whistleblower was Ivan Petrov, a 62-year-old man, a former engineer who had worked at that very secret center. His connection to the original events was direct. He was inside. He saw everything with his own eyes. He was part of the system that concealed the truth. Ivan had lived with internal conflict for many years. His conscience tormented him. He saw the suffering of the families. He knew that they deserved the truth, but fear was stronger, fear of Professor Kozlov and of the powerful organization that stood behind him. Ivan feared for his life and for the lives of his loved ones. However, time passed. Professor Kozlov grew old, his influence weakened, and Ivan himself became ill. He realized he had little time left. He could not die without telling the truth. He had to ease his conscience. Ivan decided to act. He knew it was risky, but he was ready. He began to gather his evidence. He had kept it for many years in a safe place, a small wooden box that he buried at his dacha. Finally, in early May of 2019, Ivan made his decision. He contacted a young Moscow journalist named Denis Morozov. Denis was known for his investigations, and he was not afraid to go against the system. Ivan sent him an anonymous letter. The letter contained several hints about the disappearances in Perm and about the secret facility. Denis became interested and he went to Perm. He began to dig, searching for old cases and talking to local residents. He heard whispers about forest creatures and missing people. He realized that something was wrong. Soon, Denis received another letter from Ivan. It contained an address, the address of an abandoned dacha, and instructions to look under an old apple tree. Denis followed these instructions and he found the box. Inside were old documents, diaries, and recordings. These records shocked him. The documents contained names, the names of people who had disappeared without a trace, including Anna Vasilieva. There were also dates and detailed descriptions of what had happened to them, how they had been abducted, how they had been taken to the center, and how they had been experimented on. Denis realized this was a bombshell, a revelation that could blow up the entire system. He knew it was dangerous, but he could not back down. The truth had to come out. On the same day that Artyom Kozlov found Anna's school uniform, Denis Morozov was preparing to publish his investigation. It was an amazing coincidence. Two threads woven together. The 28-year-old secret was finally about to be revealed. Tension was mounting. Denis felt it. He knew that his life was in danger, but he was ready. He had to tell the world the truth about what had been hidden for decades behind a veil of secrecy. Ivan Petrov met with Denis Morozov in a secret location. He was weak and very pale, but his eyes were burning. He said, "I have carried this secret for 28 years. I cannot die without telling the truth. They threaten me, but it doesn't matter anymore. The families deserve to know what really happened." Ivan began his story. He told of the secret center, of the laboratory where inhumane experiments were conducted. He described how Anna Vasilieva and other young people were abducted, how they were forcibly held, and how their minds and wills were suppressed. Professor Dmitry Kozlov, he was a genius, but his genius was perverted. He believed that he could create the perfect person, a person who would be completely controlled. He used his knowledge of psychology and neurobiology to achieve his goals. Ivan showed Denis old video recordings. They showed the subjects, including Anna. They looked like zombies, soulless, lifeless. They carried out orders without a word, without an emotion. It was horrible. It was heartbreaking. Ivan spoke of the cover-up system, of the corrupt officials who helped Kozlov hide his activities. They received huge sums of money for their silence and for destroying any evidence related to the disappearances. He showed Denis fake reports of accidents, of running away from home. All of them were created to hide the true cause of the disappearances. Ivan told how the bodies of failed experiments were secretly buried deep in the forest. It turned out that the doghouse where Anna's school uniform was found was part of this operation. It was a hiding place used to dump some things when the center was hastily closed after the collapse of the Soviet Union. The pendant with the initials AV and the note were part of a message that was meant to be found someday. The note, "She still hears," meant that Anna, despite everything, was still alive. Her consciousness was damaged, but she still existed, somewhere inside the damaged shell. Denis was shocked. He could hardly believe what he was hearing. This was not just a disappearance. It was a large-scale institutional conspiracy hidden for decades. He asked Ivan, "Where is Anna now?" Ivan shook his head. He said, "The center was closed, but some of the subjects were transferred to other locations." He did not know exactly where Anna was, but he knew that she was still alive. Denis's reaction was immediate. He could not wait. He had to publish this right now. He felt anger and despair, but also determination to reveal the truth to the world. The publication of Denis Morozov's investigation caused shock throughout Russia. Articles appeared in leading newspapers and news channels broadcast stories. People were outraged and frightened. The long-standing mystery had finally been revealed. Professor Dmitry Kozlov, who by that time was living in seclusion, was arrested. He tried to resist, but he was too weak. He was charged with numerous crimes: abduction, illegal experiments, and concealing evidence. The public demanded justice. The police launched a large-scale investigation based on evidence provided by Ivan Petrov and Denis Morozov. New evidence was found in archives that had previously been considered lost or destroyed. Soon, other subjects transferred from Kozlov Center were found. They were in poor condition. Their minds were damaged, and their personalities were erased. But some of them, after many years, were able to recover, albeit partially. Anna Vasilyeva was found in a specialized medical facility in a remote village. She was in very poor condition. Her consciousness was clouded. She did not recognize her parents. It was heartbreaking for Igor and Svetlana to see their daughter in such a state, but they did not give up. They were by her side every day. They told her stories from her childhood, and they showed her old photographs. Slowly, very slowly, glimpses of memories began to appear in Anna's mind. Professor Kozlov never admitted his guilt. He died in prison even before the start of the trial. Many felt that it was too easy, but his death did not stop the search for justice. Others involved in the conspiracy, officials, employees, were also arrested and convicted. Some of them received lengthy prison sentences. The system that had hidden the truth for so long had finally failed. The community of Perm was shocked. They had long lived with the feeling that something was wrong. Now they knew what it was. Memorial services were organized for those who had never returned and for those who had suffered from the experiments. Anna Vasilyeva's case became a symbol of how power can be abused and how important it is to fight for the truth, even if it is dangerous. Anna continued her treatment. She could not fully recover, but she was able to establish contact with the outside world. Sometimes she smiled, and sometimes she uttered words. Her parents were happy just to be near her. This story was tragic, but it also gave hope that justice could be restored and that secrets, even the darkest ones, would one day be revealed. Life after the exposure never became the same for the Vasilyev family. Every day was a struggle. Anna, despite years of therapy, never fully recovered. She lived in the care and love of her parents. Her presence was a constant reminder of what had happened. She often looked at old photographs. Her eyes sometimes expressed vague sadness, but she was home. Anna Vasilyeva's case left a deep mark. It became a warning about how dangerous uncontrolled power can be and how important it is for society to be vigilant and not allow such tragedies to happen again. Ivan Petrov, the whistleblower, died a few months after the publication. He passed away with the feeling that his mission was accomplished. He had brought the truth and had cleansed his conscience. Journalist Denis Morozov continued his work. He became a symbol of steadfastness and the pursuit of justice. His investigation opened the door to other similar cases that had remained unsolved for decades. The community of Perm built a memorial to the victims of those experiments. It was located on the outskirts of the city, near the place where the doghouse had been found. People came there to pay their respects and to think about how fragile human life is and how important truth is. This story was a story of pain and suffering, but it was also a story of resilience, of the struggle for justice, and of hope that, even in the darkest of times, the truth will always find its way out and be revealed to all.